welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today's haircut is the perfect cut for starting your healthy hair journey. Whether you have lots of damage or minimal, this cut is going to be a great option to clean up your ends while keeping your length and getting nice movement throughout your hair. I'm also going to be doing this same cut next video, but via the DIY ponytail method. So this cut that I'm doing today will be how I do it in the salon, and my next video will be the DIY version for those of you at home, and we'll be comparing the two cuts as well. I'll link that video below as soon as it's ready. With that being said, let's get started. All right, so before we start, I want to show you her hair fully dry so we can get a good idea on some of the issues that she is struggling with. As you can see, we have more length here on this one side, which this is a little extreme, but oftentimes one side can break a little bit more than the other depending on how we sleep, various factors. So that's something we're gonna be evening out. She also, through the back, you can see where those ends get a little bit straggly. And again, that length comes into play where we're longer here. And then also in the back, we have some breakage with our layers being a little bit shorter on one side versus the other. So we're gonna be evening that out. So I just wanted you to see it fully dry in its wild self. And now I'm gonna get her wet, sprayed down, and we'll get to cutting. Okay, so the first step before we start our haircut is using our leave-in conditioner. This is Wade's leave-in conditioner. I like this all around. It's great for fine hair specifically because it doesn't weigh it down a lot, but overall it's really nice. And leave-in conditioner is the first product, I'm almost out, the first product that you should start incorporating into your routine for repairing your hair. It is going to help give you tons of benefits and nutrients. It's gonna help hydrate the hair, seal in any split ends. A lot of them offer heat protection as well. So they literally can make your hair feel different overnight. So start incorporating that as your first step if you aren't already. I'm gonna cut her down the middle. So we're gonna break into our sections. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come right at the ear. I always start in the back and I just take my section just behind the tip of the ear. And then you're gonna comb this hair back, and all this hair is getting pushed forward and clipped out of the way. And we're just gonna repeat the same on the other side. Now we're gonna move into our back section. So when you are cutting the hair, if you have a lot of damage or a lot of breakage, sometimes it can be really hard to part with the length to where you need it to be. So I always tell clients what I suggest. I'll show them where it is, that there's a disconnect or anything like that, and I'll say this is what I would recommend for removing the most damage. But if you're not ready to part with the length, it's really okay, but just start with what you can. It's better to start somewhere. So you wanna get a good look at how it's feeling and how it's looking. We clearly have more length on this side than we do the other, and it's quite sparse. So I'm gonna first section it off, and I just take two sections and clip them up. And we're gonna comb this hair down and get a little bit better look. So her very baseline perimeter isn't the worst. It gets a little bit starting right about here. It's a little bit thinner of consistency than the hair just above it. So I'm gonna be taking off of where this length is not shorter, this good amount here. What's that at? A little over an inch, inch and a half maybe, but that'll be removing and cleaning up all this unevenness we have. So I'm gonna lift her first. I feel like she was a little low for you guys to be able to see. And then we're gonna have always the client look down a little bit. And the reason for that is if the client is looking just straight ahead, or if their head is tilted up, the hair is not going to lay normal. You want them to look down because this back section is always gonna poke out a little bit underneath. So bringing the hair forward helps to prevent the hair being longer, and it just makes it easier and it blends nice. So we're gonna come in and start on the side first that we're gonna be removing the bulk of our length. I'm using the fine side of my comb, and I'm gonna be doing a blunt cut. I want this to look nice, healthy, and thick. So you can see here where we have this extra length compared to our previous length that was a little shorter on that other side. Once I cut my guide, I will take all the hair, or should I say my length, and I'm just gonna bring it back to the center, and I'm a little bit longer right here, and we're gonna even that out. Perfect. So now we're gonna move into our next section, and you always want your sections to be where you can easily see through to the guide below. If you take them too thick, you run the risk of cutting either too much length or not enough, which is gonna make it uneven, and then by the time you're done with the haircut, you're gonna have a lot more work with the dry cutting. So we're just gonna continue cutting our perimeter through the back, taking our small sections, bringing it down, meeting our guide, and cutting that length to get a nice, even, blunt, more healthy length, and then we'll move into our back layers. So actually, I just found in this mannequin, here in this corner, so it's right behind the ear, just on this other side, we have a section that actually is shorter than the new perimeter that we just cut. So this is where you as a client or you as a stylist would want to point this out, show it to the person, like this is the difference of length we'd have to bring up. Do you want to remove it? Do you want to leave it? I think for now I'm going to leave it, and if it becomes a problem, because we'd still have to let all this hair fall for the layers, if I feel like it becomes a problem, you know, we'll discuss blending this in. But for right now, we'll leave it. I just wanted to show that to you guys, where sometimes the breakage will sneak up while you're cutting that maybe you don't always see it when dry in the consultation. As you can see, it's still prominent, but probably this next section of hair is gonna come in and maybe cover that hole. And then again, now that this back perimeter has fully been cut, we're gonna take all the hair. I'm gonna comb it down straight to the center. And you're gonna wanna use the fine side of your comb for this. We're gonna take a look. And that is good. So we've cut our perimeter. We're much more even now with the length. Like I said, we have a slight concern in this corner, but I feel like with the layers, you wouldn't have to necessarily bring up all the length, which is gonna be good for somebody who doesn't wanna remove all of their hair. It can be very traumatizing when you have to remove excess length due to damage. So we're now gonna come into the layers. So we had some breakage up here before of pieces that were a little bit shorter than the rest of our layers. So I don't want you to be, unless it's like a very drastic amount, like let's say that all of this was just one huge chunk that was shorter, you would really have to adapt all of the hair to sort of blend in and match that layer. But if it's just some minimal slight breakage that's obvious, you don't necessarily have to match it exactly. You just wanna blend out the rest. So we're gonna think of our layers as just coming in and cleaning up the ends. We wanna remove any dead ends and split ends, but I'm basing this off of this client wants to keep a lot of their length. They want their hair to look and feel as thick as possible. So we're gonna be doing more longer to medium layers, and you can cut in at the top if you need to, but we're gonna do it in a way that you maintain a lot of weight. So I do what I call kind of like surface layers. So we're gonna come in here, we have our center guide, and we're just gonna be combing the hair straight out, and I'm going to be twisting it as I lift out, so this perimeter is falling and we're maintaining our weight. So I'll show you that again. I'm gonna be coming straight out. As that starts to fall from your fingers, you're gonna twist your fingers and we're gonna cut. Perimeter has fallen, cut. We're gonna repeat that. So as we move up the head, we're coming out, twisting, that drops, cut. And then all the way at the very top, we're twisting up, fingers are pointing to the ceiling. You can come back down and cut that hair. So what that allows for is lots of movement through here. You're skimming any of the layers on the ends where that hair is split, and we're gonna move into the next section. So you're gonna take a little bit, we're gonna be working basically in pie style sections. Comb that above, over the shoulders. You're gonna take a little from your previous guide and repeat. So we're cutting off actually a good amount of length here, which if the hair is severely damaged, honestly, like any amount of length is better than not removing anything. So even if you're like, I know I need to cut more, I'm just not willing to part with it, don't feel bad, just cut what you can. It's better to start somewhere because you can do a lot of repair aspects at home, but sometimes the hair does still need to be cut. So this is a great video for that, on how you can still maintain some length and not have to part with all of your hair. But I'll link videos below to my other channel where I discuss a little bit more in depth about the steps you can do at home for repairing your hair that you can pair together with your haircut. A lot of times you need like a combined effort. So I've moved in, I have my new section of hair here. I've taken from my previous guide. So these layers, it's like I'm creating almost in 3 sections. So I pull out for my bottom layer, that's section 1. We come more in the middle, section 2, and then going all the way to the top, section 3. And we've got our last piece on this side. We're gonna slightly over direct behind the ear. I don't like to bring it out straight. This I feel like preserves a little bit more weight and length in this area, because this section is where you can naturally start to get a little bit of like that hole, or people are just more naturally thin here. And then I opt to just sort of over direct a little bit more. So it's like you're skipping section 1 of cutting and you're just moving in directly to 2 and ending with 3. So we are gonna finish up our back layers on this opposite side, doing the same exact steps, and then we will move into the sides after that. So this is like section 1 of our layers. I'm coming into that middle, twisting, cutting, section 2, and we're coming all the way up for section 3. And then our back corner here. Starting to see that length that was longer. Perfect. So now we're gonna move into our side perimeter. So we're just gonna let this hair down, and I'm gonna show you this side really had some long length to it compared to the back. So I'm gonna, instead of just doing one big swoop, I know that it's easy to just cut that. I'm still gonna take some sections just to keep things nice and clean. The more sections you have, the more control you're always going to maintain in your haircut. A lot of times people like to take sections, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. So sections allow you to keep and maintain control in your haircut versus trying to just take everything in one big grab. So we're gonna come in. I can see here a little bit where those pieces underneath are a touch shorter, so we are still blending it into that longer-esque perimeter we cut. We're coming straight down with it, and we're gonna cut. So we're gonna move into our next section, and we're gonna cut this perimeter actually on both sides, and then we're gonna move into doing our side layers. We're just going to repeat the same exact steps on this other side and get our nice side perimeter, and then I will show you how I like to start the layers for my sides. And I always, when I am cutting, mostly all of my cutting, I use the fine side of my comb. You definitely want to do that with, for sure, when you're making your perimeter. I like to do it just in general, but always definitely fine side of the comb when cutting the perimeter. Okay, so our perimeter and back layers are done. And now we're gonna move into the sides. So because this haircut client, I don't even have a name for her. Let me know in the comments what we should name her. Because she wants to keep her length and longer layers to keep her hair looking as full as possible, I'm gonna actually opt to cut the face frame first. And that's because a lot of times I feel like when you've already set the face frame, you've already set an idea for how short or long the rest of the side layers are going to be. So I like to start off with that. She has, I don't know if I cut at this mannequin, honestly, on my own or something a different day, but she definitely has something going on here where this side she does not. So that'll be some blending we've got to do. But I'm going to take a look. I'm going to comb down. So what you would want to do is at this point, Look at yourself or your client in the mirror, and remember, next week's video is going to be a ponytail version of this cut. But for right now, we're doing this based off of how I would do it in salon. So I would have the client look in the mirror and figure out where it is that they want to see their longest or shortest piece. Do you want to have a little bit of swoop? Do you want to be able to tuck it? Everybody's version of long or short is different. So just always ask them. So I'm gonna have this where it's below the jaw so you can completely pull it up away from the face, and that way you get some movement, but it's still gonna maintain some thickness and shape to it without being too much. So we're gonna start in little triangle sections, and I'm just gonna start on one side of the head first. I'm actually going to opt to use the wide side of my comb. And that's because with the face shape, a lot of times this springs back up. So for the perimeter, it's nice because you want to maintain like really good control, which you do here, but sometimes I feel like the fine side just pulls it down a little too tight. So the wide side is going to allow for a little less hold and the hair to kind of naturally be falling how it is. So we're going to come in. I'm coming all the way below her chin. It's a good like ½ an inch. And we're gonna come in. I'm coming from the other side. And we're gonna sliver down. So we're just trying to graze that outer perimeter. So I'm gonna come in, take a look and see. You want to keep your fingers at a pretty good angle. So I feel like this just needs a little bit of shaping right in here. I really hope you guys can see that. So here is my longest piece. So I'm just going to come in from the longest piece and I'm angling my shears and I'm just going to blend into that so slightly to lightly connect that line a little bit more. So now we're going to take our next section of face frame. We're gonna be combing this down. You're gonna be doing the same thing. I can see my previous guides here. I'm gonna come from the other side because we are, oh, you guys can't see that. I can see my shortest piece here, and I'm just coming up with my scissors. My hands are at an angle, and we're gonna be slivering down right into that. And you're basically gonna continue grabbing hair from the sides and bringing it forward until you're essentially meeting your length. So we have just this tiny bit right here to cut, not even a lot at all, and just angle into that. So I'm gonna match up on the other side first, and then I'm gonna show you how to blend in the layers. And I'm gonna actually spritz her down first. She's a little getting dry here for me. So to match up your face framing is really quite easy. You're just gonna grab your front section here of your first guide. You wanna take the same amount of hair, close to the same amount, and combing with that wide side of the comb. We're just gonna bring the hair straight down and we're just gonna match it up. So we've got a little bit of an angle going in here. So we're gonna do the same thing and angle into that. You can pull it down, check it out again. Her hair is a little bit thicker on this side. Good. All right, and so now what we're gonna do, we're doing the same thing. We're gonna take this hair. I'm gonna grab a little bit bigger of a section. And because I'm on the opposite side of the head now, I like to come actually up from the bottom. It's easier for me to do it that way rather than trying to sliver kind of going against the grain. So we're gonna find, actually I've got a rogue hair. Somehow didn't get cut. There we go. So we're gonna come down, find our guide, and we just have our hands that are angled down, and we're gonna be coming up from the longer point and cut. It's very easy to blend it in. Face framing can be a little like overwhelming and intimidating because it's sometimes so precise on people depending on how they wear their hair. I mean, I shouldn't say it's not precise, but sometimes some people like to bring everything in where you can really see it wrapping around the chin. I like wearing mine away. So depending on how someone wears their hair, you can get easily intimidated and anxious about cutting face frame, but just take your sections and move slow, and it's easy, I promise. So we're combing that hair down. We're doing the same thing. I can see my previous guide is all the way at the tip here of my hands, and we are just coming up from the bottom and cutting right into that. Taking our next section. Combing down and forward. And again, you basically are taking your sections until you run out of your perimeter length to cut. So that was probably our last piece, just barely, right here. Okay, so now that is done, we're gonna comb the hair back down. We're gonna take a look, see how it's matching up. What you would wanna do is stand in front of your client and take the hair, bring it back to the center, match it up, see what needs to be cut, what doesn't need to be cut. And then I like to move into the layers. So I'm gonna check that myself. I always feel bad because I block the camera, but in order for me to really see, I have to block this one. But I just bring everything forward to the center. So this is right here. This is a little bit longer on my one side. So all I'm gonna do is comb that down, take a look, and you can usually see. So I'm just a little in like this section here, snip it. Yep. So now that we've cut our face frame, that's gonna be the basis now to continue for the rest of our side layers. And I just keep it really simple, again, because we are wanting to maintain thickness and shape through thickness without losing the weight. So long to medium layers. So we are coming back from almost what our original parting was. So we're right behind the ear. And all we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be combing the hair completely forward, and we're gonna twist and just cut out the hair that's left out at the sides or left out from your fingers. So what this does is it shapes everything up nice without taking away too much weight, and it blends in with those layers, those face frame layers. So we're gonna come up, forward, we're twisting, let that hair fall, and we have just barely anything to cut here. We're gonna go up a little bit higher, twisting forward, and just barely nip. And we're gonna repeat that, literally going all the way to the very front of the head. So I'm gonna try to do a different angle for you guys. Yeah, you can see that better, I think. And we're taking our last little bit of hair here around the face. Forward, 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 twist. Just barely, some guys to cut. And then we're gonna repeat on the other side. So we're coming to just behind the ear. going all the way forward while twisting and cut. If you were to stand in front of the client, you would just be over directing to you, twisting and cut. Come up a little bit higher, cut. So she definitely had overall a lot more length on this one side of her head. So we're coming over, twisting, and then just go elevate your hands a little bit higher, pulling that hair just more upwards while pulling it towards you, cut. And then we've got our very last section. Perfect. Okay, so now what we'll do is I'm gonna re-spritz her down before I blow dry her. And the reason why I'm doing that, the back is just a little bit more dry. So when you are styling your own hair at home, or if you're doing a client in salon, before you apply your products, you actually want the hair to be of even consistency with how damp it is. You want an even level of moisture. If some of the hair is dry, the products aren't gonna grab on it the same way. You're not gonna be able to get either as much volume or as much smoothness. So I always re-spritz before I apply my products, just so everything is getting spread evenly onto the hair. And then she actually has a lot of frizz, so I'm gonna use a more smoothing product. This is just Pro Longer's filler amino acid. I have their whole line of this. I'm obsessed with it, but this is a nice just like leave-in treatment actually, but it does help with frizz. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of that. Not a ton. And I'm gonna apply that starting at her ends and working my way up through the rest of her hair. And then I'm gonna leave all the products linked below, as well as some like drugstore alternatives. And then, like I said, I will leave linked below those other videos from my other channel that go in depth a little bit more about maintaining your hair health on your own at home, as far as styling, products, repair treatment routines, all that good stuff. All right, so we've got her dried and styled, and we are gonna do a little bit of dry cutting because I'll show you guys how to check any of the layers, but I wanna show you the back first. So this corner that I was concerned about has come in to play, and for some reason she won't stay straight when I rotate her. Yes, it's not just that the mannequin was uneven. So you can see here, this side, where this spot was a little shorter, you can see the disconnect where this side just is a nice, even like flow, the shape blends out. So if I was a stylist in salon, I would recommend to the client, especially if they had a lot of damage, to just come in and taper that off. Now, while I don't feel like that's a lot of length, to somebody else it might be way too much hair and against their comfort zone. So then I would figure out, do you like wearing your hair back off of your shoulders, or do you push it towards your face? Because if you always have it pushed towards your face, it no longer becomes a problem. So you don't necessarily have to remove the length. At some point, you will have to even it out, but if you wanna get to a certain length before you do that, you don't always have to cut it off. So at the most, what I would do to suggest for a client is to just kind of slightly, and see, even sometimes when I comb it down, that doesn't look as bad as it did before. So depending on how the hair lays. But what I would do, okay, I can see it more now. I would just, at the most, nip this little bit here, and I know it's not a lot, but to just soften it up somewhat. So if the hair is back, maybe it'll be less obvious. Again, depending on how like straight you blow out your hair, or if you do it with a lot of bend, if you curled it, you wouldn't even see it, but you don't always have to. You still could remove a little bit more length in here where it was a little bit more sparse, but overall it looks nice. It looks a lot more thick. If you come in here, you can see that. But that's an option that you don't always have to part with the length if you don't want, because when you push it forward, it doesn't even matter. So to check our layers really quick here, it's very simple. What I like to do is we're just gonna come across the top of the head. So I'm sort of right by the crown, and we're just gonna comb this straight up. This is to check our side layers. And we've got a little bit of a disconnect here, not a ton, but we're just gonna point cut into that to blend that in so our top layers are even on both sides. And then once you've done that, all I'm gonna do with the wide side of my comb, and you can take much larger sections at this point, you're just gonna, same thing that we were doing for the back layers, the whole twisting, and we're just gonna lightly, where this angle is here, just point cut into that to soften it up. We're still maintaining our thickness through the hair. We're not removing a bunch of weight. It's just blending that in. And then we're gonna do the same thing on this side. You can take a bigger section because you already have the bolt cut. And I can see it all right in there. Yeah. Perfect. But much, much better. The layers flow very nice. They're just enough so you still have a lot of shape, but if you were somebody with a lot of split ends, this is a great way to get some of that removed without taking out too much weight. So I'm gonna finish her style, get her set, and we'll get you guys out of here. All right, here is our finished look. We have got a much more smooth and healthy cut with still plenty of movement without removing too much length. The layers add just the perfect amount of movement, giving plenty of shape. This is gonna be great too for whenever you wanna curl your hair. And this beauty, she overall just looks much better than where she was at when we started. Don't forget to check out the videos linked below in the description. And don't forget, my next upload will be that DIY ponytail version of this cut. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.